Well, kidnappings for ransom have risen by nearly 200% over the past decade, and this is according to the police's crime statistics. Kidnapping syndicates have expanded their market and no longer exclusively just target the wealthy individuals and their families. Middle-class people have also fallen victim, and an 18-year-old Wits University student was recently kidnapped and held captive at Denver men's hostel. eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila is tracking that story for us and joins us now to give us this update. Aviwe, good morning to you. As we focus on, kidnappings around the country, we know that it is equally a problem for SAPS, for net joints, the security cluster, all working together. Seeing this trend seemingly increasing, but it seems that it's not just the rich that are targeted. Even the middle class and even students can also fall victim.
Definitely a problem, Tumelo, and if the numbers that the South African police services are telling us are anything to go by, the picture is scary. You mentioned that just days ago, that 18-year-old Wits student was rescued after being lured to these kidnappers just via a dating app. Now, just to get an insight on what to do in these situations and just maybe how bad it is, I am joined by Professor Gerard Lebosagni, a former South African Police Service kidnap negotiator. Professor, thank you for joining us at eNCA. But it seems like it's a scary picture, given that it's on the rise by 200%, say the South African police services. Just how bad is the situation?
Well, the first thing you have to accept, you can kind of ignore the police stats. And the reason why I say that is a lot of these things don't come to the police's attention because people don't want to report it. And the definition of kidnapping in South African law is so broad, it doesn't really tell us what kind of kidnappings are taking place. So the stats can be at best a general guideline as to what we're seeing. We're seeing anything from what we call express kidnappings, where people will drive around, literally stop, grab someone off the sidewalk, take them to an ATM, force them to pay them some money, maybe keep them until 12 o'clock at night when they can draw more money and release them. That's more your quick, short, what we call express kidnappings. And then you have on the other side of the spectrum your very organized, high-value target where you're kidnapping someone for, tens of millions of rand. And anything in between that, from domestic kidnappings where a father who's getting divorced maybe takes his child from the custody of the mother. So this whole spectrum of kidnapping is very, very broad. So just looking at the stats doesn't really tell us what's going on.
And you mentioned just how it varies, even in terms of just the levels of it, not only attacking the affluent, but just the ordinary families. Cause of concern behind this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're more at risk for the sort of low-level kidnappings where somebody, as I said, just sort of grabs you and takes you to the ATM and forces you to pay money, or where there's a debt owed between two people. They know each other, and the one hasn't paid up, so he takes the child of the other one and hangs on to the child saying, you owe me that money, pay me, and I've got your daughter. So I think, the risks are different for different types of people. Some of that we can take active steps to prevent, obviously not getting involved in doing dodgy things. If you're very affluent, making sure you have security there to look after you, because that's going to reduce your chance of being kidnapped. In terms of the dating app, of course, that has inherent risks by using dating apps where you're meeting a stranger at a venue that you don't know is secure. So the different types are going to have different risk profiles and different ways you can prevent becoming involved in those situations.
I guess, Professor, the important question then is what to do in those situations that you are kidnapped. Let's say you are even put in a boot. What are you to do as a person that's kidnapped?
Well, I think across the board, no matter what kind of kidnapping it is, you just cooperate with the suspects. Usually you are just a means to get to something, and that's usually going to be money. Cooperate, don't fight back, don't argue, do whatever they say and pay them. That's, literally the safest way to make sure that you're going to be released safely.
And afterwards, is it wise then to go to the police, given even just understanding this Wits student is one of 80 of that particular syndicate? Is it wise then to report to the police, or what do we do after the kidnapping?
Look, I do think there's still value in going to the police afterwards and reporting it, if anything, for statistics. And if anything, if those 80 people hadn't reported those cases, we wouldn't know about them. So I do think there's still value. What the police will be able to do about it after the fact depends on the circumstances of the actual case. The more professional groups, you're probably not going to catch them, but the less professional people, you have a chance of catching them. And of course, that will be preventing someone from doing it again. But of course, it is very concerning that we have, I think, 86 cases that were reported to the police. Why weren't these people caught sooner? I mean, it's like having a rapist who rapes 80 people. It's a policing failure. So we shouldn't have people going up to those levels of where we have 80 reported cases. And I can guarantee you that's probably not even 1/10 of the actual cases that occurred by that same syndicate of people, because the majority of those people are not going to go forward to report it to the police because of the circumstances under which they were actually ended up being kidnapped.
So you're saying that there are possibly more numbers than those 86 of this particular syndicate that took the 18-year-old Wits student. And then in a way forward, do you believe the police have the capacity to deal with this scourge that seemingly is on the rise?
I'm very concerned about their ability to solve these cases. If we just look at the sort of high-value targets, there have been almost no arrests in terms of those really big kidnappings like the Moti children that were kidnapped and other ones that were in the media, because those groups are so professional, the international syndicates, and I don't think the police is playing catch-up in trying to solve those types of cases. So we've almost never had somebody released by the police by investigative actions or the suspects being caught afterwards in those big cases. So we've had successes in the smaller types of cases where it's less professional people. But really, I think the police have to really invest in upskilling the investigation capacity of these types of cases, the technology needed to do so, and upskilling their negotiators into dealing with these very, very kidnappings, which in some cases can go on for months, that there are interactions with the kidnappers in negotiations to try and bring that person back home.
And in terms of cooperating with the police, you mentioned the Moti family, and it was quite clear that they weren't keen on cooperating with the police. What happens in those instances? How does the police then get the breakthrough that they would seemingly need?
Of course, I mean, the more the police are shut out of actual information, the more difficult it is to solve those cases. So in a case where the families decide, we don't want to report it to the police, or we don't want police involvement, or we don't want police involvement with the negotiations, you kind of have to respect that, because the police haven't been doing sterling in this area. We even had the police's sort of kidnapping task team where some of the people were accused of actually extorting people for money themselves. So you have to understand that the families are typically told, don't go to the police, it'll put your family member in danger. We don't have a lot of faith and trust in the police's capabilities of corruption and other reasons. Unfortunately, you have to respect that the families are going to want to deal with this privately, which is also why a lot of these are not coming to the attention of the authorities.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Labuskakni, a person that, of course, was a former South African Police Service kidnap negotiator, would know all about, of course, what happens in that world. In fact, just yesterday, the Police Minister, Bheki Cele, was giving the stats around kidnapping and also touched on that case of the 18-year-old Wits student that was lured via a social dating app and is actually, in fact, one of some 80-plus victims of that particular kidnapping syndicate. Let's take a listen to the Police Minister, Bheki Cele.
In Gauteng, a multidisciplinary team led by the anti-kidnapping task team rescued an 18-year-old Wits University student from a kidnapping syndicate last Wednesday, 20 September 2023. The syndicate had been targeting the LGBTQI+ community through a popular dating app. Police have broken the back of this particular kidnapping syndicate that has so far been linked to over 50 kidnappings, to be more exact, 56 kidnappings, where ransom demands were being made. Still on kidnapping in the Northwest, in August 2023, an intelligence-driven operation led to the arrest of 7 suspects who kidnapped the victims from ransom related to municipality tenders. The clients were lured to a house to sign a contract relating to the solar geyser project to the value of 17 million. The suspects, who were dressed in police uniform, were found holding the victims hostages and demanding an amount of 300,000 rand. The suspects are facing kidnapping charges, including that of impersonating police officials and possession of fraudulent documents. Recoveries included 2 unlicensed firearms with 15 rounds of ammunition, SEP's uniform with 2 appointment certificates and 2 vehicles.
All right, well, of course, we'll leave it there for now. eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila with the latest coming from not only what the Police Minister Bheki Cele is saying, but also an experienced negotiator, kidnapping negotiator, who, of course, gave us some caution there as to what exactly is the reality whenever kidnapping cases is been dealt with.